Hey everyone, Michael Crump here, yet again, talking about console and more specifically console hacking or modification. Today, I wanted to talk about removing your Xbox clock capacitor from your original Xbox. So this is only going to be needed if you have a version 1.0 through 1.5. And the reason that you want to remove this clock capacitor is simply because if you don't, it is very prone to leak. So you definitely don't want that. So over here, I've got an Xbox original. This console has never been opened before. That means that nobody's been inside of it, nobody's tampered with it, and we should be in a good starting state. You're going to need to remove these 4 feet at the very bottom of the Xbox console. I use this little tool of mine that kind of helps you get a little bit of leverage. But in short, you can use things such as like a butter knife or any other kind of like tool that you need to just kind of help get a grip for underneath that pad. Okay, and you will see that there is a lot of the times there is a lot of glue that's kind of left over from those last 20 years. And here I'm just going to pull out some of this glue using the tweezers part that I have here. We're going to finish up here. We're going to get the last leg off. We're still not done just yet. There are 2 more holes. So down here on the Microsoft Corporation sticker, as you can see, I started poking through looking for the hole, and then I found it, and that's where another screw lives. Up at the top, you also will see that right here is where there is another screw, and what I just simply do is just poke through it as well, and then I just remove that top part. All of these Xboxes are out of warranty, so it really doesn't matter. You're going to need a T20, so the T20 will take care of these screws on the outside, and then you'll use a T10 for the inside to remove a couple of screws. Let's go ahead and let's load up our T20, and we are ready to rock and roll. Okay, so now you've got 6 screws, and you're going to need to simply unscrew all of these, and then you'll be able to lift the top part of the case off. So I'm going to go ahead and just undo one real quick right here, just so you can see the length of it. And I will go ahead and speed up this video and get us to all 6 of these being removed. And we're going to flip over the console here, and we're just going to simply remove that very top part of the case. Currently right there, that is our hard disk drive, and the other drive is obviously our DVD drive. So I'm going to take this IDE cable and kind of unfold it a little bit here, because what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to remove the IDE cable from the hard disk drive, and then we're going to need to remove the power from the hard disk drive. So there we go. Both of those have been enabled, and then there is a screw here. So this time we're going to switch from the T20 to the T10. So switch over to the T10. Other folks have mentioned using the T8. I find that the T10 does work a lot better. So if you're on Amazon or you're looking around for a torque driver for that, you can get a T10, and I can assure you that it will work just fine. Let's go ahead and get the power cable out of the way. And now we should be able to grab our hard disk drive and just pull directly up. Most of these drives are around in the 10 gigabyte to 20 gigabyte, so they really don't store very much. But the good news is that you can get a SATA drive, which we'll be doing in another video, and you can upgrade that drive to something a lot larger. Okay, so for the DVD, again, there's 2 screws. There's one right there that I have marked, and then there is another screw on this other side. So I'm just going to simply remove both of those. Okay, and so you can just pull straight up and remove your disk drive if you would like to, or you can keep it connected. Okay, so taking a bit of a closer look, as you can see, this Xbox is pretty dirty because it has been unmodified on the inside for the last 20 years. So this is the clock capacitor. Again, I'm working on a 1.0. If you have another version of your Xbox, you can easily determine where that is at. I'll link a couple of guides down below. Okay, and so this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So there's a lot of videos that's out there already where people are doing things like taking the motherboard out, they're soldering behind it to loosen the grip of that clock capacitor to the motherboard. I don't really think there's a whole ton of benefit in that unless you're actually going to replace it with a brand new capacitor that won't leak. But if you're going to remove it, there's probably, the best way to do so, at least in my opinion, has been by using, something like needle nose pliers. They're very common. You probably already have a pair of them inside of your house. And another method that folks tend to talk about is also wiggling it back and forth. I'm not a big fan of that method either. So let's get our needle nose pliers here and let's remove it that way. And also, I kept this video, it's at the exact speed that it actually took me to remove this. So you could see the effort that was involved. But basically, I just started going in a clockwise or counterclockwise position here in order to remove it. And it makes a very clean break when you don't wiggle it back and forth, but you just attack it from the top. So that is what it currently looks like when it has been removed. And you can already see here, so see the darkness around where that was at. That's where this capacitor is already starting to leak. So in order to preserve this Xbox, you absolutely will need to remove that. I'm pretty happy with that modification. Now, obviously, after you do that, you probably want to come in and use some sort of rubbing alcohol in order to clean up the pads and to clean up the area a bit. Okay, so now all of that is said and done. I'm going to actually remove the power cable as well as the IDE cable from the DVD drive because I am going to take this out and I am going to blow some compressed air on it and get this cleaned up at least a little bit. And before we put this machine back together, there is one more thing that we should do, and that is TSOP flash the machine. By using a TSOP flash, we can put in our own custom firmware onto the board. There's 2 pins that's located in here, which I will show you in just a second, and you basically have to solder these 2 points. Obviously, with custom firmware, you can do things like use just about any other drive and so forth. In this example, I've went ahead and I've taken the motherboard out of the case, and we're going to do a quick scan of it here, and then I will show you the points. Okay, so this is the full motherboard. I just want to kind of show you this to kind of get you the lay of the land. Okay, so right here is where we removed that clock capacitor just a moment ago. And where you see kernel 4034, that's what we're going to navigate around in just a moment. As you can tell right here from where my mouse pointer is, there is these 2 very tiny points that you're going to need to solder together. Now, these are very small. I have zoomed in pretty much to the max of my camera just in order to show you this. These are tricky. They will take a little bit of time. If you've never soldered before, definitely, find something to practice on first. But those 2 small points is what we're going to need to drop a bit of solder into to bridge those. That's going to give us the ability to write back to that flash. So they disable it from the manufacturer and we're just re-enabling it. So what I've done here is I've went ahead and I've soldered this together as it looks like there's this gigantic blob that, as you can tell, which is right here, it's actually not that big. It's actually a very tiny blob, but it looks like this when I blow up the image. Now, as you can see down here, this is when I had started and a tiny bit of it reached on R7D2. As long as this is not connected to this, which it isn't in this case, we'll be good to go here. And then if you flip over your motherboard, you'll find this point that is R7, R3. And underneath it, there is also 2 more connection points. Just drop a little bit of solder in there, and it should bridge both of those. And you should be ready to TSOP flash your Xbox. Now I'm going to start putting everything back together. So I'm starting right here with this DVD drive, and I'm just plugging the cable back in, and now back to the power cable here. And then we're just going to seat it straight back down again. Okay, and there are 2 screws that you're going to need to put back in here that you took out earlier. I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. And now for our hard disk drive, just go ahead and seat that. Make sure these power cables, you're not trying to force it on top of those cables. Just feed them through as I'm doing right here. Okay, and the last thing that we're going to need to do here is we're going to need to plug in that IDE cable back into this. Again, for this one, I am not updating the hard disk drive. I'll be coming back over to that in another video pretty shortly. We still have 1 more screw to put back in here. And now we should be able to put back on the top cover and then turn it over, and we just need to put back in those 6 screws and we will be done. Okay, go ahead and put the rubber feet back on there. You may need to use some sort of glue to get these to stick back in there again. But there we go. And we are now ready to take this Xbox and to plug it in and make sure everything is good to go here. Okay, so now our Xbox is booted back up, and I can see here that it has defaulted to 4 a.m. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in my Ethernet cable, and I'm going to let it pull down the local time from the internet. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. So here it is. There's no internet or Ethernet cable connected. And there we go. It reset itself to the local time. And if yours isn't working, you can quickly go to System, and then you can go down to Settings, Date and Time, and just make sure that your settings looks just like mine. Okay, so now we're going to need to insert the DVD that we created using Hemdahl's Xbox Engineering Disc. I'll put a link for this up above, but we are going to use the very latest and greatest, which is the 2021. Boot up to this disk, and then we're going to go down to number 3, which is TSOP Flash Chipped Xbox Tools. Take that option, and we're going to take that very first one there, which says 3.1 Flash Modup TSOP, not WinBond/Sharp. Now again, all of this depends on the type of Xbox that you have. This is what's relevant for mine, which is the 1.0. Okay, so we're going to hit yes here, and it is now going to copy over the dashboard and a few other things. And in just a moment, you'll see it kind of close out of this screen and then reboot, and now it is in the Evolution X. And when it gives you this option to select the BIOS file, for the one that I'm using, which is 1.0, I'm going to take this very first option here, which is Flash 256K BIOS version 1.0 through 1.5. Okay, on this next screen, you're just going to navigate down a little bit, and you're going to select the one that says Evox M8 plus FNG. So obviously this is going to enable you to, when you replace the hard drive, because you will at some point, you'll be able to use the full size up to 2 gigabytes for your other partitions. And you should see this screen here. I'm going to hit Y to flash here, but if you have a problem and it does not work, don't worry. Your system isn't bricked or anything like that. It will let you know that the system can't be flashed because it's not writable. Now, how do I know that? Because I've experienced that, right? Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so when your system reboots, you should see this screen, and if it's not obvious enough, the Evo X that's up here is obviously going to let you know that you now have a custom BIOS running on your machine. I know everybody likes a little bonus content, so this is actually the before and after cleaning of the Xbox. I didn't spend a whole ton of time on cleaning this, as you can kind of tell from that fan, but for the most part, it's been cleaned up and the system's been preserved to last me hopefully a long time. With that being said, thank you so very much for watching. I will catch you on the next one. Michael, out!